Hi everyone, welcome to Lola's Frugal Life. This is episode number 108, and today we're going to be talking about using sinking funds to stay on budget. So please stick around for a few quick words from our sponsor and we'll get right into the show. Okay everyone, so today I wanted to talk about sinking funds. I know I've talked about this before as parts of other episodes, and I did do an episode, it's got to be at least several months ago, like maybe even like 4 months ago, I don't remember, on sinking funds, but it's something that I want to do periodically because I think it's really important to rethink about or just to introduce to people who aren't familiar, because it's been such a huge help, and I think it's really important to think about your sinking funds, to set some up if you don't have it, or to learn about them if you don't have any at all yet or don't even know what they are. So basically, sinking funds are used as part of your budgeting process, like to make sure that you're staying on track with your spending goals. So what they are is each week or month, or however you do your budgeting, you take an amount for certain expenses and you put money aside for those expenses that don't occur like every week or every month. You know, depending on how you budget, if you have expenses that maybe happen once a month, but if you're budgeting weekly, you would need to account for those monthly expenses in your weekly budget. You also need to account for expenses that happen annually or semi-annually, however they occur, or things that just kind of come up that you don't really know when they're going to happen. An example of like a sinking fund is, I don't know if any of you remember, but I remember when I was a kid, and they might still do this, I honestly don't know, I just haven't seen it forever, but I remember they used to always have something called a Christmas club, I think it was called, at the banks. And it was basically like a little savings account that people would open up, and they would deposit, like, say $100 a month or $50 a month or whatever, all year long. And then at the end of not the end of the year, but when it got closer to Christmas, they would empty the account and they'd use that to buy their Christmas gifts. So that's basically what a sinking fund is like. And what's really great about sinking funds is that you get so much better control of your finances and staying on budget when you have money allocated each week for these things that don't happen each week or each month. Because if you don't put money aside for them, you might feel like you have some extra money for discretionary spending, and then you might buy something that you wouldn't have necessarily bought otherwise if you realized that you really needed to save that money for something else that was going to be coming in the future. So some examples of things you could set up sinking funds for are things like birthday gifts. Like what I do for my birthday gift sinking fund is I have a list in order of all my nieces and nephews' birthdays and like my family members that I buy birthday gifts for. And I have them listed in date order, and then I have the amount that I spend on them, and I list that out. And then I'll have like a miscellaneous, like, I don't know, say sometimes at work you chip in for a gift, or maybe occasionally you might go out to dinner for like a parent's birthday or something like that. I think of all the birthday related costs that we have in the year, and I list them out. And what I also like too about listing the birthdays in orders is, as I'm doing my budget, I could look to see like who's coming up next, and it reminds me to make sure I send that money out, if it's like a check I'm sending, or I buy them a gift or whatever. So then I look to see like what's the annual amount that we're going to spend on birthdays, and then I divide that by 52 because I do my budget weekly, and then each week I set aside that amount of money for birthdays. So it's when a birthday comes, I don't have to think like, oh my gosh, I don't have any money this week for this birthday, it's going to cause me to go over, where can I save? I don't have to worry about that because it's already part of my weekly budget. So that's what I do for birthdays. I also do for car maintenance. I just set aside a certain amount each week, and that just accumulates, and then when we need to get an oil change or there's like a repair or anything like that, it comes out of that money. I also do one for pet food and supplies, because same thing, like, if all of a sudden 1 week you need like a big bag of dog food, a big bag of cat litter, maybe we have guinea pigs, so like maybe shavings for the guinea pigs, they ran out of pellets, like it seems like those things all happen at once, and then it can kill your whole weekly budget. But if each week you're putting aside an equivalent amount for what you spend on an annual basis, if you're not buying it like for, say, maybe 6 weeks you went through and you didn't need to buy any pet supplies, and then all of a sudden you run out of like everything at once. Well, you've just saved up now for 6 weeks, so it's not going to matter. You're going to have that money set aside. You can buy all of those 4 or 5 different items that you suddenly need, and you don't have to take like a big hit to your budget that week and try and scramble and figure out how to make up the difference. Medical co-pays and prescriptions is a good one to save for. That's happened to us before too, where like all of a sudden in like 1 week 3 different family members have to go to the doctor, and then you get hit with those co-pays, or someone needs a prescription or whatever. So that's a good one to save for too. That one's a little bit harder because you don't always know exactly what you're gonna spend on medical. I try and go a little more on the conservative side and save a little bit more than I think we're going to spend. That way, if we do get hit with something, there'll be enough money set aside for that. Clothing is good. I really don't buy myself clothing that much. I mean, I kind of have what I need, and once in a while I'll buy something, but my kids need clothing more often. Well, they don't really need it. They're teenagers. They're pretty much grown, but they like to get, new clothes and things like that. So I have a sinking fund where I set aside a certain amount of money each week for their clothing budget, and they're fully involved in that. Like, they know how much I set aside each week for clothes, and then they'll ask like, oh, how much is in my clothing budget? Like, how much have I accumulated? And that's what they're allowed to spend. So I don't go over budget on spending clothes, money on them. Like, if all of a sudden it's back to school time, and we don't go out and do like this big shopping spree, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, where am I getting this like $500 that I just spent on them on clothes? If they've saved up a lot throughout the year, they could do a bigger back to school shopping. But usually what happens is they wind up spending, that was originally the idea. I was saving money all throughout the year, and then I thought, okay, when it's time for back to school, we'll be able to go. We have all this money set aside. But throughout the year, they wound up wanting things, this new sweatshirt or whatever. And I said, okay, well, if you spend that, though, you are going to have less to spend when it's time for back to school. And they were pretty much okay with that. Of course, they still always want more, but they understand. Like, they ask me now, how much do I have in my clothing budget? And I say, this is how much you have saved up so far. And they know that's what they're allowed to spend. So it works out really well like that. School supplies is another one. I usually just set aside like a couple dollars each week throughout the year for school supplies. And then that way, when the time comes where we have to go out and buy new notebooks, pencils, pens, whatever they need for school, there's already money set aside. Because that used to be another thing that, like, when September would come, it would be the clothes, it'd be the school supplies, and then all of a sudden I'd think, oh my gosh, we're so over budget, where is this money coming from? And it would really stress me out. So that's kind of how the sinking funds usually, well, at least for me, that's how they've developed, because I wasn't really fully aware of what all the things that I wanted to have sinking funds were for until they messed up my budget that week. And then I think, okay, what really hurt our budget this week? Okay, it was school supplies. I went out and spent $120 on school supplies this week, and I only had, I don't know, whatever budgeted for miscellaneous spending, and we already spent it on other stuff, and then I spent school supplies, and now we're totally over budget. So as those things happen, I create new sinking funds, and then I address it. So now going forward, I'll always have money for school supplies. I'll always have money set aside for clothes, pet supplies. Another one that's good is like for any annual or semi-annual insurance payments you might have, to say, okay, what's the annual amount? Because a lot of times you could save money by paying them in paying them all up front rather than making a monthly payment. If you make a monthly payment, a lot of insurance companies will charge you like a fee on top of that, like a financing fee. So if you want to be able to save that, instead of paying them monthly, just save up for it monthly. And then you'll always have the money ready when it comes time for that payment. So, I mean, you can go as crazy as you want, or you could do it really simplified. I have gotten really pretty detailed, even to the point of where I save, I forget, I think it's maybe like $2 a week for my Amazon Prime subscription. And I know a lot of people would think like, oh my gosh, really $2 a week? But when that $100 fee comes out, that can be a big hit to your budget in a week if you have a lot of other stuff going on. So yeah, I set aside $2 a week, but when the Amazon subscription renews, I'm like, okay, done. I had the money set aside, and I move on, and then I start saving the $2 a week again. I don't necessarily think that most people are going to do that level of detail. It's just what I enjoy. Like, I like looking at every little thing and having like the money set aside for every little thing to be sure that we're not going to get like these unexpected hits at certain times. But, you can even kind of group those things. Like, say if you know, okay, I'm going to have an Amazon subscription once a year that's $100 and something. I have a Costco membership. Maybe you have a BJ's membership. Whatever. Maybe you have different, maybe you have like an XM radio, or I think it's still XM, or is it Sirius? I can't even remember. Is it Sirius? It's Sirius, I guess. Yeah, I think it's Sirius now. Maybe you have like a Sirius membership, or something like that renews periodically. Like ours is annual. I don't know, maybe some people's are monthly, whatever. But you could always just kind of add up all of those items and then just have like an annual amount and then divide that by your budgeting. If you budget weekly or monthly or whatever, you could just divide that out and then just save that amount out of each paycheck. And then regardless if it's the radio or if it's the Costco fee or whatever, you could pull from that pool of money. You don't have to get as detailed, but it's kind of fun for me. I like to have it all broken out. We also, like another one we do is we have a third vehicle, a truck, and it's like we use it just for like camping and things like that. So it's not like our main vehicle, so it doesn't get gas put in every week. But then when it does need gas, it's expensive because it's a truck to fill it. So that can be a big hit to the budget too. So what I do for that is each week I just put aside a small amount for gas for the truck, whether we use it or not. And then that way, whenever we need to fill it, I'm like, okay, we have money set aside, and we just fill it, and we don't have to think or worry about it. It's not going to mess up our budget. So that's kind of what you want to think about, like what things happen to you throughout the year that wind up killing your budget in a certain week, because it's usually those types of things that are like not normal regular expenses, and like car repairs and things like that. Those you don't know the exact amount, but you just have to kind of do your best to estimate. And even if you didn't get the estimate right, it's still better to have something set aside than have nothing set aside. Even if you don't have enough to cover the full repair, hopefully maybe you have some savings that you've been including in your budget if you're able to, and maybe you could pull from that. But that's something I do with the sinking funds too. Like, say if I have a sinking fund for like family fun, I do one for like family fun, because like sometimes the kids will want to go like apple picking, or they want to go to the movies or whatever. And I don't really budget for those things specifically, but I just kind of have like a family fun sinking fund, and I put a little bit in it each week. Or sometimes if maybe we came in under budget for the week, maybe I'll stick like an extra $5 or $10 in the family fund sinking fund or whatever. But if an emergency comes up, like a major car repair or anything like that, any of those types of sinking funds that might be like for family fun or for the kids' clothes, if I had to, like if they had plenty of clothes and I was like, all right guys, we need to really pull from somewhere here, I will pull from those other sinking funds that are more like discretionary, like family fund type things like that. Of course, I'm not going to pull from the pet expense, because the expenses aren't going to go away. The pets need to be fed. They need the supplies, whatever, so I wouldn't pull from something like that, because then that's just going to set me up for failure later on down the road. But I pull from any ones that are like discretionary spending type sinking fund accounts, and use that to help out cover an expense that happened that I didn't have enough saved for, if it was like an unexpected, like a major car repair or something like that. So all right, let's see. So I already talked about how to calculate them. So how do you, where do you want to hold your sinking funds? Like, where do you want to keep the money? So what I do is I actually just keep it as part of my checking account balance, and I just segregate, like, okay, here's the balance, but this much money is set aside for the sinking fund, so it doesn't get spent. Like it's not even there. And I have each sinking fund listed and how much is in it. But I understand that won't work for some people, because some people just would want to know that what's in the checking account can be spent. Like for me, I'm really disciplined in that way, and it doesn't even. It's just how I am. Like that's kind of the. I'm really into like the budget and the checking, and like I'm like, no, this is what we have. But I know for some people it would feel more comfortable to not even have that money in the checking and not be tempted to think it's available to spend. So you can put it in a savings account and then just pull the money back in when you need it. Some people will use online banks to set up, because a lot of the online banks you could set up like lots of multiple little savings accounts that have like no minimums and they don't have fees. So you can actually even do like several different sinking fund savings accounts to have like, maybe you have like one for car repair, one for home repairs, one for medical expenses, or if you just feel like you need to get it out of your checking account but you don't want to have all those little mini accounts, you can always just have like one savings account where you deposit all your sinking fund money into, but then keep maybe like a spreadsheet in Excel, just kind of maybe with columns to show you like, okay, I have $300 in this savings account, $50 of it's for this, $100 of it's for this, whatever, and then just kind of keep a spreadsheet showing the amounts, and each time you make a deposit, you could put the amount in the appropriate column so that you could show this is the total savings and this is what the money's allocated for. So that's just one way, you could do to keep track of the money and just kind of have it, make sure that it's set aside. So that's pretty much it. I am definitely going to bring this up periodically and just do a refresher on it, because I think it's really important. I'm going to do that with a lot of the financial topics that I covered, because they're all worth rethinking about periodically. That's kind of my whole motivation for starting this podcast, actually, was that I wanted to really share a lot of these things that I find really helpful with thinking about periodically, to just kind of refresh myself and keep motivated and staying on track for our financial goals. So if you haven't tried sinking funds before and you find you're struggling with these expenses that occur irregularly, I would definitely recommend giving it a try. It is such a good feeling to have that money set aside, even for the simplest things. Like I said, like with the pet expenses, I like to buy dog food, for example, in like a really big bag, because it's less expensive that way. But if we were having like a rough week with other unexpected expenses that came up, and then I'd be like, oh my gosh, we're running low on dog food. I need to spend like $50 to buy this bag of dog food or whatever. It's stressful. And then you're like, oh my gosh, now we're over even more. And we had those other things happen. When you have the money set aside, you're just like, oh, we need dog food. Okay, done. It's there already. Like no thought, no stress, no change to the budget. And just, if it's something you want to try and it feels overwhelming with thinking of all these different things, just maybe pick two categories, pick two areas that you struggle with. Like try and think like, what always messes up your budget? Is it like the periodic clothes for your kids? Is it car repairs? Is it like those unexpected medical expenses? Like what is it that always messes you up? And even if, is it going out to dinner? Maybe you like to go out to dinner once in a while, and you go out and then all of a sudden you're like, oh great, we went over budget this week. Well, maybe set up a sinking fund to go out to dinner, and you can only spend what's been saved up. Like we do that with Trader Joe's. My kids like to go to Trader Joe's just to like randomly pick out some fun different things and snacks, but it's not part of like my regular grocery shopping. So what I'll do is if we come in under budget once in a week or whatever, I'll stick aside like $10 or $5 or whatever, and I'll kind of let it accumulate. Like I'll build it up, and they'll be like, oh, we should go to Trader Joe's, and I'll be like, oh good, I have $40 set aside. We can go to Trader Joe's. They could pick out a few things, fun snacks or whatever, and then it's nice because it's no concern about the current week's budget. It's already been set aside for. It's like, it's just, it like changed it changed the stress in my budget process by having this money put aside. Now, I'm not saying that stressful things don't still come up that are unexpected, because they do, but it took away so much of those unexpected expenses that are really expected. I mean, you're going to have car repairs, you're going to need to buy pet supplies, you're going to need to buy clothes. Like, they're going to happen. You just don't know when they're going to happen. So if you weren't thinking they were going to happen in this week, and then all of a sudden they do happen in this week, and then often many of them happen at the same time, and then you're struggling to catch up because you've already spent the money because you weren't thinking that you were going to need it for these expenses coming up. If you have it in your weekly budget already, you're not going to spend it because you're going to be setting it aside for these things that are going to be coming in the future. So anyway, that's it on sinking funds. I hope this was helpful for you. I definitely just suggest giving it a try. Just pick one or two accounts and then build on it if you like it. So that's it. Don't forget, if you'd like to reach out to me, you can message me through Facebook Messenger. If you just go to facebook.com/Lola's Frugal Life. You can also join the private listeners group that we have. It's Lola's Frugal, it's Facebook. I do that every time. It's facebook.com/groups/Lola's Frugal Life. And you can submit a request to join. It's still fairly a small group, but we're growing. We keep getting new members. We not like a ton, but we have like a decent group forming, a lot of nice people. So I'd love to have you join. The plan is just to discuss topics similar to what's talked about on the show: finances, productivity, cleaning, all that kind of fun stuff, cooking. So please join. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the show, and if you would like to leave a review, that would be much appreciated. I just got a new review. Someone wrote subscribed, and they gave me another 5-star review, so I was really excited. So thank you to whoever posted that review on iTunes. If you hear this, I really, really appreciated it. It's so exciting when I see a new review. I check every day. I don't get them often just because I know it's not something that people typically always do. But I have 4 5-star reviews now, so I was very excited to see the 4th. So thank you so much. And thanks again for listening, and I hope you have a really awesome day.